Welcome to Backstreet Gossip, current events, news talk, and political commentary. Now here's your host, Ron Ludders.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to be here, and we're glad that you're with us. I'm going to introduce the staff here tonight, but I want
Staff? Is that what we are?
your staff.
We're staff?
Well, my cripples. At any rate, I'll tell you what. I'm the only one here, just to prove a point, I'm the only one here that has a first name and a last name. We have Ray Michaels.
Hello, everyone.
Two first names.
Well, Michaels, it has an S on it.
Oh,
So you wouldn't call somebody
I didn't
Michaels.
notice. I thought there were two of them.
I know.
At
Well,
any rate, and then we have Peter Martin.
Definitely two first names.
And he had
For
two
sure.
first names.
Yes.
And his twin
Hello,
brother.
everyone.
And his twin brother, Martin Peters.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. We'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. A lot's been going on, and I mean a lot. The country is in peril. I'm almost to the point I'd like to fly my American flag upside down because there are so many things going wrong in this country today. But before we do, I want you all to click on that little like button, click on the share button, and follow us. It's really important that we get lots and lots of follows. And you know, Ray, we'd like to have some comments. We do get comments, but not a lot.
Yeah.
We want to know what you want to know. It's important. And are we the legitimate radio? Yes, we're internet radio podcasting, and we're telling you the news as it is, as we see it. And we think we're telling you the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
At any rate, and tonight we have on the phone, we have Mr. Mike Considine, and he's been here before in person, but he's down in Tucson. And Ray, we got a problem down there.
we do. Hi, Mike. Are you with us?
I am. Thank you for having me.
And our problem is it's not unique to Tucson. It's not only not unique there, it's not unique to a great deal of the United States. And that is there are people that are public servants that are being threatened with firing and suspension simply because they don't want to take the vaccine. And we recognize the fact that, as we have discussed before, we say when a woman wants to have an abortion, the leftists will say it's her body and she can do what she wants with her body.
Yeah, and, the whole HIPAA, everybody knows about HIPAA. We don't have to disclose our medical information to anybody except the people that we want to, including our doctors.
Usually our doctors.
Yeah, it's our doctors. So, and it's a decision.
Or insurance agents like me.
Insurance agents, yes. Yeah, we did
Sure.
it. And if we know that something is wrong with us, but as an insurance agent,
Yeah.
you would have a list of things. Have you ever had this malady? Have
It's
you
a
had that?
lot, yeah,
You
sure.
ask them, have you ever had this?
Absolutely.
Do you ever ask them, are you healthy?
I don't recall a question exactly like that. No.
Okay, but do you say, look, I've listed 20 different things.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to share with me?
Right.
Right? So you
Yes.
ask specific questions. Do you ever ask them, did you have your diphtheria shot?
No.
No?
No.
Mumps, measles,
nothing.
rubella?
Nothing.
No?
Nothing.
So you don't ask for
No.
any, did you have your flu shot this year?
I've seen it come up, but not every time.
All right.
Yeah.
So from the time that we're young, we get these immunizations,
Yeah.
and they ask, have you had your shots? But do we know if any of these, all of these have a longevity, right? They've been around for
Yeah.
50, 60
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what is the normal protocol for the FDA to approve some sort of vaccine
Takes
shot?
time normally.
Well, yeah, because
Sure.
after 1 year, it's this. After 2 years, it's this.
Right. Right.
I know we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But, Mike, you are down in Tucson, and a lot of things are happening down there in Tucson with regard to mandating, forcing people to get this shot that's still, although it's been FDA approved, do we know, did it go through the normal protocol that every other vaccine or shot has gone through? Do we know that?
I don't think it has. For example, I have not heard of any animal trials. Have you heard of any animal trials?
I know that
maybe they're counting us.
Well, tell you what. Let's just cut to the quick and have Mike describe what's going on down there. As I see it, there is a Democrat mayor, and it could be a Republican, but it's a Democrat, and they are making threats against public employees. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, Ron. Mayor Regina Romero, in defiance of Governor Ducey's executive order that I believe has been issued within the past month to 90 days. I don't know exactly when Governor Ducey issued this executive order, bolstering our right not to take a shot. I'm not going to call it I'm not going to call it a VACCINE because that's not what it is. It's an mRNA medical procedure inoculation. But yes, Governor Ducey, Attorney General Mark Brnovich, both in the past month have issued opinions and executive orders that protect our right to choose and protect our rights not to be succumbed to these mandates. And the mayor, in collusion with the Biden Justice Department, it's the only reason that explains her bold approach of defiance of the governor, is actively harassing, coercing, and intimidating Tucson police officers, 230 Tucson police officers, who have refused to take the COVID jab.
Now, is this in addition to the law that was passed by the state legislature with regard to, did they go there at all, or was that only mask mandating?
I can't answer that, Ray. I do believe that the state legislature did pass a law that did strengthen existing laws, enhancing our right to not take this jab.
Okay, so Peter, I think that you have
I've got the Brnovich piece right in front of me here, and it actually says on page 17 out of 40 exactly what Mike just said, is that when it comes to a public entity, which of course we would think a police department would easily fall under that, it says here, Arizona law expressly forbids making a COVID-19 vaccination a condition of employment by a public entity under certain circumstances. Under ARS 36681A1, this state and any city, town, or county of this state are prohibited from establishing a COVID-19 vaccine passport or requiring any person to be vaccinated for COVID-19. So yeah, they do carve out health institutions, unfortunately. But when it comes to a public entity, which I would think a police department falls under, we have the law on the side of the employees here.
Now, Mike, you had brought up that there's a lot of pressure from the federal government as well. Now, Ron, and we talk about this on the show all the time, the federal government was established by the states.
That is correct.
The 50 states got together and said, well, less at the time, 13 colonies got together and they said, we will establish a federal government for specific reasons, right? They're going to protect our borders.
Correct.
They're going to sign international treaties, and they're going to make sure that interstate commerce goes okay.
And that's it.
That's it. That's the ability.
There's nothing about medicine. There's nothing about education.
Right. So for the federal government to say we're intervening in a state issue, where did they get their foundation from that?
They have none. And yet you'll have the Supreme Court that say there's no foundation for these lawsuits. You have no standing. The Supreme Court has been questionably incorrect in most of the things that they've done. Most of the extent of the courts. I mean, you can go back to before the Civil War, Dred Scott decisions, where it was okay, you could take runaway slaves and You must bring them back to their masters. No.
Well, this is even bigger than just Tucson and our state, because it's going on throughout other states. And in Chicago, or in Illinois right now, there was a judge who told a woman that her 50-50 custody of her child would not take place unless she got the COVID shot. So her parental rights,
were violated by the government.
Now, this is by a judge, and she informed the judge, I spoke to my medical doctor, and he said because of my immune suppression, I am not recommended to have the COVID shot. He said, I don't care. You will not see your child until you have the shot. Now, this is judicial overreach on steroids. That is unbelievable.
It's not overreach, it's dictatorial. That's what it is. And the
Absolutely.
judge should be
Can I jump
removed
in real quick?
immediately. Yes,
Yeah, please.
yes, Mike.
What's important to understand is that it's not just the governments. The definition of fascism is when corporations and government merge, the private ownership. Because government in our contract in the Constitution is that social contract between the government and the people. And in commerce, we have the public side and we have our private side. So the public is we the people, and that constitutes our government. But when we have private corporations usurping corporate power, what we see is you walk into a Walgreens, you walk into an Albertsons, you walk into a Home Depot. They ask you, are you vaccinated? They ask you for your vaccine passport. So 80% of this fascist state that we're entering into, a permanent fascist state, is being rammed through by our corporations, which in the most case are internationally brokered, internationally owned, these massive international corporations. And sometimes they're just local to the United States, but it's our businesses and our corporations, our airlines, our media. They are 80%. So our mayors and these politicians, they play actually a small part in this new fascist Marxist age of tyranny.
Well, the president of the United States was encouraging these corporations. He's saying we can't do it as a government, but we're encouraging you as a corporation. You mandate this.
He's been reading too many philosophies of Mussolini and Hitler, because those were fascists. They were true fascists. And there is no place in this country. Now, how does the government do that? They coerce these corporations with tax breaks. If you push this, you're going to get certain tax benefits. We already know that so much money that is going into the big pharma to promote this stuff. Imagine coming up with a virus or a vaccine in 3 or 4 months, when in fact they take years and years. And I read today, to be honest with you guys, I read today that clearly 1/3 of all of the drugs that had been approved by the FDA, Federal Drug Commission or Administration, have been bad drugs. And you can think back. I know as soon as one of them, I can't remember which one just was approved, but the first thing I said, if you remember, Ray, do you remember thalidomide? That was approved. Now, what thalidomide, for you younger viewers, women would take this thalidomide, and they would have babies that were missing arms and hands and legs, and it was a terrible drug, but it had been an approved drug.
What was the drug for?
I can't even remember what it was for anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear that word, it's just, there were, I don't know how many thousands of babies that were born without hands or feet.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And there was I remember doctor-approved fen-phen for weight loss.
Oh, yes.
Fen-phen. And then, you see these commercials. If you're watching TV at night, late at night, they always have these law firms come out. Have you been exposed to this? Have you been exposed to that? Did you take this medication? Did you have, did you use baby powder with talc in it? Did you do this? And there's lawsuits all the time over these drugs that were approved. All we're saying is, look, talk to your doctor. Do your own research. We're not doctors up here. We're not telling you information that is not readily available. I mean, Peter, you have a passion for doing research.
I do.
Unlike
yes.
anyone else that I know. But you like to dig deep.
Sure.
And it's not as though you have a secluded library somewhere where you have this special information that nobody else has. You go online.
Online, sure.
You do the research.
And whenever I do a full-fledged presentation, I make it clear usually that I don't have to pay for this information. I don't need a special password to get this information. I just dig until I get my answers.
Right.
And I don't settle for just one person or one publication telling me something, because you never know what you get from a certain person.
Right.
You got to get it from multiple different angles before you can zero in on what's right. And unfortunately, as Ron has just alluded, when you talk about an entity like the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, I'm sorry, viewers, this is not one of those angles, the FDA that is, where I would look at what they say and necessarily conclude, oh, well, I heard it from the FDA, therefore it must be right. No, not at all.
Ron, how many people at the FDA are elected by the people?
Zero.
Okay. How many are selected by the people?
Zero.
Okay. So who oversees the FDA for the people?
Well, there's supposed to be oversight by the Congress. But
No. They're too worried about January 6th.
That's what
They're too worried about.
That's where I was heading
Yeah.
with this. They were just too troubled to worry about whether there was an insurrection, whether Donald Trump, and we'll get into this later, but whether Donald Trump's discussion with the Ukrainian leadership
telephone call
was appropriate, a phone call.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what's going on in Afghanistan later. That was inappropriate, the way this went down.
What about spending trillions and trillions of dollars while the situation in Afghanistan is happening? Do you think Congress should be?
I would have thought they would have been involved with this much deeper than they are, especially the fact, and I know we have some graphics later coming up, with $68 billion worth of equipment that we, surprise, here, just take it.
How about U.S. citizens that are being held without charges, without
in
bail?
D.C.
Right?
And we've been very
Cruel and
instrumental in
unusual
discussing that.
Punishment? Yeah.
And because it's still going on. We still have people in Washington, D.C. in jail without bond, without court dates.
You know, I know, Mike, you're still with us, and I know that here in Phoenix, that our mayor here is trying to mandate, again, for our armed forces, for our local police force, that we support greatly, that they're trying to mandate this vaccine for them too. Is that the same thing happening down in Tucson?
Well, the mayor has mandated it, and they're actively suspending police officers. They haven't retracted their policy and their statement. So we're hearing multiple rumors about, like I said, these police officers are living under duress and coercion, intimidation. So they're being threatened. If you speak out or if you leak, you will be fired. So they're very careful about what they say, even through their spouses. But from all we can tell from the statement that was issued, that in fact officers are indeed being suspended, or at least being threatened with suspension. But the point is that these officers are being forced out because they're in a hostile environment. They're being ridiculed by the City of Tucson Board of Supervisors, who have said, you police officers who are unvaccinated are unworthy to be public servants because you are putting lives in danger. This hyperbolic, melodramatic vitriol around the unvaccinated people being murderers of a virus that has a 99.096 survival rate, and someone can correct me on it, but the vitriol, the hype, this overzealous exaggeration just to get people to take this unsafe mRNA genetically modifying medical treatment, and that's what it is. It's not a vaccine.
Yeah, well, Mike, just following up on the number that you just provided, I've been doing a lot of research. This is Peter Martin on the phone, and I have not seen any scientific paper anywhere state a death rate higher than 0.26%. That's the highest I've seen anywhere. So,
and I believe the
close.
flu, I believe influenza is a higher rate than COVID.
It could be. Yes.
Now, Ray, if I may,
yes,
you are so good at giving this great disclaimer, because we always worry about the fact that people want to believe us and say, hey, you guys are right. We're not necessarily right, but why don't you give the disclaimer? You do it so well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So we like to do a disclaimer, right? We are three people up here that have done a lot of research on the things that we talk about. And we encourage everybody, don't believe us. Don't listen to us. Do your own research. We're trying to open your eyes and let you know that a lot of information that has been given to you by the mainstream media may not be quite accurate the way that they're portraying it. So there are other sides to the issue. Yeah. We live in a free country, and we have free speech, and we want to be able to express our concerns that we've done the research on. We suggest you do the same. So don't take what we say and etch it into stone. We want to make sure that you do your own research and be an informed citizen. Now, I do want to send out kudos to Sheriff Mark Lamb from Pinal County, because he came out, and I think Ron, you saw this, didn't you?
We're going to play it in just a minute.
That's fantastic.
This is a good. Mr. DeSante, do you have Sheriff Lamb? Now this is a real, honest to goodness Western sheriff,
and a great guy.
So if you live in other parts of the country, look this up. His name is Lamb, L-A-M-B, just as
Mark Lamb,
as you see in the Bible. And he's a phenomenal sheriff, and he's the exact image is a Western sheriff. He wears a cowboy hat and everything.
He's a really good guy.
So if you have that, pull that up, because those of you that are watching this on the East Coast, listen to what we believe out in the wild, wild West.
Hey folks, Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb here. With the increase in private businesses and even government organizations talking about mandating the vaccine, I wanted to let you know that here at the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, we do not mandate the vaccine, and as long as I'm your sheriff, we will never mandate the vaccine. We believe that your health choices are yours and yours alone, so whether you get the vaccine or don't get the vaccine, that's your private information. Here, we believe in America and freedom, and we're going to continue on with that. God bless.
Thank you, Sheriff Lamb. And we have other sheriffs that believe this way too. Now, Mike, sheriff is in law enforcement, just as the police officers are in Tucson, and they need to take a lesson from this man. But I want to take this a little. Let's explore this concept. Do you think that the Mayor Romero might be into one of these defund the police modes? And what better way to defund the police than to find a different cause in which you can defund them?
Go ahead.
I would say absolutely yes, and let's maybe take it a step further than just the Marxist radical AOC defund the police agenda. That this is meant to weaken our police, make them not only demoralize our police, but to purge our constitutionally minded police. Because when a police officer is standing up for his constitutional rights, you know that officer is going to stand up for your constitutional rights. But let me say one last thing. What we are witnessing is the Biden administration at the local level, causing this stand down at the same way they're doing their stand down in Afghanistan. So from top to bottom, from the full spectrum of military and police power, we are seeing a stand down and a purging. Now, this sergeant that we're all supporting, this lieutenant who had just resigned his commission yesterday.
Well, he's a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah. He
in the
spoke
United
out.
States Marines.
He spoke out asking for accountability, and not only was he reprimanded, but they threatened to take away his pension, his investment, his long-fought, entitlement to his to his 17 years of service to the United States military. So you notice that if you want to keep your pension, you keep your mouth shut and you get in line. And unfortunately, this impeccable officer has been forced out of our military the same way they're forcing out our police officers. So if people are hearing this news about what's going down in Tucson and they're not alarmed, well, wait until these police officers have been purged from our police forces and we get these new police officers to take their place, and they're knocking on your door and they're asking you for your COVID vaccine. And I know that I'm portraying a scenario that might be unlikely, but as we travel down the slow, progressive, incremental tiptoe towards tyranny, the probability in the next year our law enforcement and military is completely purged of these honorable and courageous Marines and police officers and Army veterans. As we lose our honorable military members, think about what type of society we're going to be living in.
Well said. And we're going to talk about that in our third segment of the show tonight, and we do have some of the things that this lieutenant colonel talked about. We all have seen what has taken place in this country in the last year. We've seen what's been taking place internationally, the border issues, the withdrawal from Pakistan, the leaving of equipment, the leaving of American citizens behind. I have never heard of such a thing in my life, and it's pretty doggone disgusting, to be honest with you. And now when we see these people, you got to get a vaccine, Vaccines aren't for everybody. Some people can handle them well, others cannot. And there have been many, many, many deaths by people that have taken vaccines, which is wrong. I mean, to take just imagine the thought that I may get a shot and it may, it'll put me down like you would a rabid dog.
My life. Yeah, you said Pakistan, but I think you meant Afghanistan.
Yeah. All the stands get
So Peter, let's see this thing through. Let's go to the next step, right? They're saying that we must do this for public safety and health, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
What
It's
they're
for the health of the people.
Sure.
We are requiring you to do this. All right. Well, we know that heart disease kills a lot more people than the flu and then COVID, right?
Yes.
And so the people that are selling these deep fried food items, fast food items, right?
Yeah.
These people that are working there are killing people? I mean, is that next?
Ultimately, yes, you could connect the two, sure.
I mean, we think
but
now.
I don't think that the heart disease thing satisfies any kind of agenda.
Okay, so this really isn't about health and safety. This is about agenda.
I think so.
Ron, I remember, and we were doing this back then as well, when Dr. Fauci looked at the camera and said, "Look, we need to just level the curve. We don't want to overflow the hospitals. We need to get together as good citizens, as good Americans, and just wear the mask for 15 days, 15 days only, just to flatten." There was a what they wanted us to do, and the purpose for doing it.
Yes.
Flatten the curve because the hospitals would be overwhelmed. So we need you for 15 days. Only 15 days we can do this. We can do this together because we're good Americans and we have to get together and we need to do this. And now that is turned into, what now, 17
An hour
months?
and a quarter later, here we are. With,
Mike, it's what you were talking
Yeah.
about, incrementally changing it. Okay, now that we have people used to wearing masks, we just needed a little bit more. It's worked so well that we need a little bit more and a little bit more. Mike, is this what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, the boiling frog analogy that we're all so familiar with.
Well, you know, I wanted to address something. Ray, you
I
began
feel
to
like
hit,
a frog.
You begin to hit on this. Okay, what was it? The very first things that we were told to do: wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you don't get in anybody else's space, and if you don't feel well, stay home. That was the response.
Well,
Okay,
Ron, actually, they said nothing to see here. Go
Pretty
out.
much.
I remember Nancy Pelosi. Go to Chinatown.
Yes.
And the medical
Have
initially.
fun.
and
Yes.
the medical
Get
ex-
out. Yes.
And the medical examiner, I think, of New York said, just go out, have fun, go to
Have
the movie, go to
fun,
the
enjoy
theaters.
yourself. Go. It's fun.
Just go, no
Yeah.
big problem. Okay, so then we started in with, okay, not only wash your hands, okay, but wear a mask. But you don't have to wear a mask because they don't work. Remember, we were told they really
Yeah.
didn't work.
Listen, if there's a little bit of spittle, it's
Exactly.
okay, but it really doesn't do anything. And who said this?
Anthony Fauci.
Fauci.
Anthony Fauci
On
said
60
this.
Minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he told you had to wear a mask, and then you see him at the New York Yankees ball game without a mask on. Oh,
Right.
my.
Was that after he threw that amazing pitch?
Is that amazing pitch he threw to first base when he was trying to throw to home plate. Any rate, so then we say, okay, fine. You're fine if you stay 6 feet apart and wear a mask. You're cool. Okay, then we went to the next thing. You got to social distance. You got to wear 2 masks, and you need a shot. You need the shot. You got to have the
Because
shot.
if you get the shot, you don't have to wear the mask anymore.
Right.
That
And
was
you-
the promise, yes.
And so now we're talking about, Mike, we're talking about this woman, the mayor of Tucson, is threatening, in my opinion, she's threatening these people with their livelihoods when, in fact, if a person is keeping 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, and have a shot, they supposedly, quote unquote, are safe. There's no problem. We all know this is a bunch of hooey. There is a problem. Now, that doesn't mean that COVID doesn't exist. It does.
It does.
And it is a terrible disease. But we're not dealing with it the right way. It's going to be here forever. We have to be aware of that. And we have to bulk up our stuff. Our persons with health, eating healthy foods.
We need to get healthy.
Taking the right drugs.
Exercising,
exercise,
eating right, getting plenty of sleep.
Yes.
And you know, the vitamin
of
C, the
sunshine.
vitamin D, the
Yeah.
zinc. These are
Yeah.
all things you need to do. And you need to get out in the sunshine and exercise. You need to be healthy. It generally doesn't take people down that are healthy. The people that have mobility,
Morbidity.
I can't say that
Not
word.
mobility.
Co-mobility.
What is co-mobility?
That means when you can walk and ride a bicycle at the same
and chew
time.
gum. And chew gum. Yes.
So, at any rate, the bottom line on this is, guys, what do you have to fear? You keep telling me you are fearmongers. This disease can be controlled,
Yeah.
and it is being controlled.
Hey, Mike. I know that you know this statistic, but and I know, Peter, you've done the research on this. They have said that if you have come in contact and you have the antibodies because you've already either had COVID, come into contact with COVID, they said that these antibodies are what, 10 or 20 times better
Yes.
than getting a shot. Mike, are you aware of this?
I heard it was 13 times more.
I
your
know, but
natural
it's bad.
antibodies-
It's bad
The
luck to
bottom
say
line,
that on the radio.
Bottom line, it is better if you have that. That's certainly nobody can argue that. Your body is a tremendous machine, and as it builds itself up to battle these things, it can battle them.
So what does
Well,
it say?
what's important to there are some important statistics to understand. In Israel, which led the way in the jab earlier this year, it's documented through their own government reporting that 85 to 90% of their hospitalizations are vaccinated individuals. In Japan, they yesterday have come out and banned, I believe, the Moderna vaccine for a whole host of reasons. One being that the vaccine contains an element called it's a metal. And I'm sure one of you know graphene oxide. A first world country in the G7 has outlawed this product.
Wonderful.
For its toxic. And one last thing is that this the Pfizer from the day it got its approval, I believe on Monday. Now it's probably down to 10 days. They've got 10 days to release the ingredients of their vaccine, which they're not going to be able to do. So they're going to be rebranding it and shuffling and baiting and switching. But I'm curious. I have a question for all three of you.
Go ahead.
Where's the rubber going to meet the road? Because we're having this fabulous, robust debate about all these facts, but all the while, the fabric of our society is degrading. When are the people going to take to the streets? When are we going to have enough of this? Because obviously Governor Ducey, he can sign all the executive orders he wants. The state ledgers are there. But our police chiefs and our mayors and our corporations, they're just going to run roughshod over this. How long are we going to take this?
Well, Pete is biting at the bit here, so go ahead, Peter.
Well, Mike, if you're talking about people heading into the streets, we in the U.S. are a little bit behind on that. I mean, there's been a little bit of that in New York City, but not too much nationwide. But if you look around the world, it's highly, highly encouraging. We've had
France, for instance.
Well, yeah. Let me do them last because they're the most spectacular. But Italy, 81 cities. We've had protests in Australia, and in some places where you wouldn't necessarily expect freedom to pop out in this manner. But Cuba and Iran have protested. Poland has had a protest about this. And then, of course, yes, you get to, like the UK, all of London was protesting for multiple weeks. And France is, of course, leading the way. They literally have had protests in 175 French cities for 7 weeks in a row now. And in fact, one of the things that they've started doing, which I think is a great idea, and I think some people in the U.S., maybe here in Scottsdale, should pick up on this idea, is the restaurants that are requiring vaccines from patrons before they enter the restaurant, people are taking their blankets and their picnic things, and they're setting up their little camp, and they're eating right out in front of the restaurants. In other words, the restaurants are making no money at all, and people are eating right there in front of them. So, and this is fabulous. I mean, this shows you that the world is in a state of really, we're moving toward a mass non-compliance here. And I'm very hopeful, actually. I believe that the world is headed to what I like to call the Rosa Parks moment. It's like way back when Rosa Parks in the South was told to get up out of her seat and go to the back of the bus simply because she was a black woman. Mm-hmm. And she just sat there and said, no. And that's all it took. And from that point on, civil rights got underway, and we had this big movement toward freedom and equality. And I think the human race is headed toward that Rosa Parks moment where everybody just says, no, enough.
Peter, I'd like to ask you a question. And this is perhaps one of the most telling answers that you're going to give me, because I know what the answer is before I ask it.
Yeah, like any good attorney.
Yes. Don't swear at me. I'm not an attorney.
Am I under oath, Ron?
I'm not an attorney. But we have one in the room. And I play one on TV. At any rate, here's the thing. Pfizer just got their certification on all of this stuff. How many Pfizer employees are mandated to take their vaccine?
That would be 0.
What?
Yeah.
See, how? Why?
Yeah.
Because they want to be around to make
question.
the next one.
Because they don't want to lose any of their employees.
No, isn't that strange? You would think that they would be promoting it. Listen, this is the best thing. We've come up with this. We think that we encourage you to do that.
Yeah. I'm sure they are encouraged, but not mandated.
So, Mike, give us some good news from down in Tucson.
Well, my time is about up. I do want to let everybody know that Sheriff Richard Mack, who founded the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, he's going to be leading a Martin Luther King style march on City Hall September 15th at 5 p.m. And we're going to take to the streets. We are going to actually do a march, and we're going to be posting more information on Sheriff Mack's website, which is cspoa.org, and we'll give you more information. But it's really simple. Just get down to Tucson and find out where all the Patriots are, and we're going to march on City Hall. Now, this is not going to be like a Trump rally or one of these other rallies. This is not a rally. We're going to take it up a notch, and we're going to take a play out of the playbook of the Democrats, minus the Molotov cocktails, the burning cars, and the bricks to the windows. We're going to follow the example of Dr. Martin Luther King, and we're going to start participating in what we all know is civil disobedience. And we need to start following the examples of our predecessors that have paved the way. And so I want to encourage as many of your listeners to go to cspoa.org in the next few days once we have more information, and get more information about the Civil Rights March, because this is a civil rights issue. It's a constitutional issue. It's a Nuremberg Code issue that 500,000 American soldiers died in World War II to establish the Nuremberg Code, that Nazis like Dr. Mengele, who experimented on people that were captured during World War II and put in concentration camps. We have so many laws protecting us against this tyranny, and they're all by fiat being dismissed by the flick of a pen. So we do need to start taking it up a notch. And Sheriff Mack, who some of you know, who talks about the lawful authority of the sheriff on the land, the constitutional authority, he's going to be leading the Civil Rights March. And we're gonna start taking it up a notch and bringing up the public awareness and letting people know that they are crossing a red line when you start messing with our first responders. These are selfless patriots that wake up every day, put their lives on the line to protect and defend their community, and they are being trampled on, and they're being purged from not only the police department, but our fire departments and our hospitals as well. And we hope that the public has enough empathy and enough patriotism to join us and support our first responders, because when these constitutional servants to our community are purged from our community, what we are going to see is what we are seeing in Australia and in Great Britain, where they are kicking in people's doors and pulling them out of their homes for not being, quote unquote, vaccinated. In Australia, they have abducted tens of thousands of children from their parents and put them into stadiums and forcefully vaccinated children who have not been, quote unquote, been vaccinated, and their parents are left helpless while their children Their immunity is being destroyed by this genetic manipulation. We are living in a real-life horror show, and there's absolutely nothing to take lightly. Now, we need to be polite. We need to have civil discourse. But we are in a very dangerous time. And, yeah, it's not that bad here. But we will be turning the corner into next year when things get really bad. And we should not balk at the opportunity to defend our civil rights, defend our constitutional rights, and our rights under the Nuremberg Code, and a whole host of other codes and laws and statutes that have been passed in the past 50 years to defend us against this tyranny. So if you're sitting at home and you believe that you can sit out this round, sit out this year, because 2020 was so bad and you just need a break, I implore you to pray about it, check your conscience, and think about what it means to have a duty to live in this country. We all bear the weight of responsibility and duty to peacefully exercise our First Amendment right to peacefully protest and not take this crap anymore. So on September 15th, 5 p.m., to downtown Tucson, you'll find Sheriff Mack and hopefully thousands of other patriotic Americans who recognize the red line has been crossed. The Rubicon has been crossed. And it's up to every individual for them to determine when their moment of truth to start taking personal action. You don't have to start a radio show like Ron and Ray, and you don't have to run for office. You just need to take to the streets and pick up a sign, just the way the Democrats did last year, except we're not going to be breaking windows and setting fires.
Property.
But we're going to take the streets and we're going to say no.
Mike, go ahead. We're going to have to take a break here, so go ahead.
We need to put the fear of God into these people.
Okay.
What county is Sheriff Mack from?
Pinal County. He's the former sheriff of Pinal County. He won a state Supreme Court case about 25 years ago regarding the constitutionality of the sheriff on the land.
Awesome.
Hold on, we got one more. Peter had something to say. So
Mike,
everybody listen up here.
Mike, in reference to what you said about putting the fear of God into these people, I just want to give something to you and the employees that you represent, and also to anyone listening to our show tonight. There is a very valuable document out there on the LouRockwell.com website. It's an article called Important Information to Employers from America's Frontline Doctors, and it's written by Gary G. Coles, MD. Very recent, August 30th, and it is a letter. It's a sample letter you can download, and you fill it out and you send it to your employer, and it turns the whole thing around. It does what you just said, Mike. It allows the employee to put the pressure on the employer. In other words, I'm not going to go through the whole letter, but for example, it tells the employer, hey, you know what, you want me to take this vaccine? Well, if there's an adverse reaction that I suffer from this vaccine, if I'm not able to work as a result of it, or if, God forbid, I die like at least 12,000 people have from the vaccine, then you are responsible for those consequences. So this is a wonderful letter for employees to have, and really turn things around, like you said, Mike. Put pressure on them.
Okay, listen, we're gonna have to go. We've run overtime here, and we've got other guests that are coming up here.
Thanks so much, Mike.
We do appreciate you're very articulate. We'll talk again soon, especially before this activity. It's still a couple of weeks away, and we'll have you on a couple more times to promote that. So thank you for being on the show, Mike, and pass this show on to all of your police officers and fire and first responders. Make sure they get a chance to see this. We'll be up on Facebook later this evening, so get a hold of that. Folks, we appreciate you watching. Don't go away. There's more to come. See you on the other side.